Everybody, Andrew Cuneo here with another new deck to try in Phyrexia Standard. This is going to be a Jund deck based around taking advantage of Tyvar, Jubilant, Brawler. This is an idea that I've seen a lot of people have. This is my take on that deck, but I'm sure that it overlaps pretty heavily with, well, it's what lots of other people are trying, but I just wanted to try it to see how powerful I thought it was. So the key with making Tyvar good is you need to have a critical mass of 2-drops in your deck, and you need them to be things that can take advantage of the static ability, where you can activate the abilities as though they had haste. I mean, not everyone has to take advantage of that, but ideally it would be taking advantage of being a 2-drop and the static ability mattering. So the most obvious card that fits those criteria is Bloodtithe Harvester. I think most people who are going to try to build Tyvar decks in Standard are going to play for Bloodtithe Harvesters. Then the second one I'm trying is this new mana creature, Armored Scrapgorger. It gives you a little bit of incidental graveyard hate, but mostly it's just a mana creature that eventually turns into a 3/3, and it provides mana of any color, which is going to be important because I'm trying to cast Invoke Despair in a 3-color deck, so I need to have a lot of ways to produce mana of any color if I want to be able to cast my quadruple black spell and also my spells in other colors. So those two are pretty easy inclusions. Then my third inclusion is Shigeki, which is a card I like a lot, and it does take advantage of both criteria for being good with Tyvar, because it's a 2-drop and it has this activated ability that you kind of cast like a rampant growth sort of once it no longer has summoning sickness, which the Tyvar gets rid of. So that's really nice. This is a card that I've always really liked. It's always been just kind of a little bit too slow and clunky for Standard, but I think Tyvar is going to help it some, like certainly giving it haste so you can play it and activate it all in one turn is nice. Also, it is a card that I think has always played pretty well with Invoke Despair, because Invoke Despair tends to lead to you just having longer games because you're taxing your opponent's resources so heavily when you're Invoke Despairing them that they frequently run out of stuff to do to kill you, so you're going to have time to get your Invoke Despairs back, which is pretty nice. Rounding out the rest of the deck, well, we've got another card that's also very good with Tyvar, Fable of the Mirror Breaker. It's obviously great, and being able to get Chapter 3 to not have summoning sickness the turn you hit Chapter 3 is great. So that's an obvious great synergy with Tyvar as well. One other new card I'm trying is Glissa Sunslayer. This is one that I've had a number of people play against me. It seems very good to me. It's like if people don't have a removal spell for it, it's just absolutely going to dominate combat because of First Strike Death Touch. And if your opponent isn't in a position where they can kill it and you get to attack with it, like letting the triggered ability happen is something that a lot of times you just can't afford to let happen. So it might need to get chump blocked because at a minimum you're just drawing a card and they're losing a life. But if you're destroying an enchantment they actually spent mana and a card on, that's massive. The remove 3 counters thing matters a little bit less, but sometimes you're going to clean up a Planeswalker with that for sure. Got a mix of removal spells, the only new one being Sheoldred's Edict. I think that this is obviously a pretty good removal spell. I don't really know what the right mix between these 2-mana black ones is, but I'm going for variety, just in part so I can get some experience to see which ones I like better than other ones. But also, if you're going to play a bunch of reactive cards, a lot of times you do actually just want to play a mix of them, because if you have 2 of them in your hand at the same time, you want to have an option to play the one that works the best in whatever the situation is. So barring there being like some thing that you just absolutely have to kill and only one of the removal spells is going to work on it, you probably do want to just play a mix. And the 3 cut downs is because Standard is very much a tempo game, so you want to have some 1-mana cards in your deck, and certainly a 1-mana card that's going to trade up 1 mana most of the time is pretty nice. I've got 26 lands. I think I'm a little bit... I think I have a few more lands that don't tap for black than the Grixis Invoke Despair decks do, because I've got 3 Gorges, a forest, and a Boseiju, which I don't know that you need to play the forest, but I'm choosing to play the forest. But you have to remember, I also have 4 Scrapgorgers in my deck. So I've got 26 lands plus the 4 Scrapgorgers. And I think I've got 21 black-producing lands plus the 4 Scrapgorgers plus the 4 Fables. So you're not... And if you have Scrapgorger with Tyvar, you can get 2 mana from it as well. And Shigeki helps you get mana. So, you are playing a quad-color card in the 3-color deck. It's not going to be 100% castable when you hit turn 5, but it is going to be castable the vast majority of the time, I would say, with this mana base. I don't have a Shikenzen in my deck just because I didn't want to play a land that only tapped for red, because red is, my least useful color. Other than that, the lands are pretty self-explanatory. I'm playing, I guess, 3 Copperline Gorges, 1 Blackcleave Cliffs, and 4 Ziatora's Proving Grounds. I didn't want to play more of the fast lands going with the cycling lands because you don't really have that many spots. You don't want to have your lands coming into play tapped on turns 4 or 5 with Invoke Despair, so you don't want to draw a ton of lands that are only good to play on turn 1 and then these turns 1 through 3. It might be better to tinker and maybe play 1 more fast land and maybe 1 less pain land. I am playing 6 pain lands, which is enough that you're going to feel it sometimes. Sideboards, a lot of the usual suspects. I do have some Canker Blooms in my sideboard. That is another card that works very well with Tyvar. I have Uthrun, which is... I just want to continue trying that against Haughty Djinn counter-type decks. Another Sheoldred, which probably looks a little bit weird, but I do think that there are decks where Sheoldred is really good against them. So even though I didn't fit the second one in my main deck, I wanted room for the second one in my sideboard. Third Shigeki to give you another trump card in grindy matchups, and some Reckoner Bankbusters for sort of the same thing. I've got some Vampire's Vengeances, which is against soldier decks or that human deck I played the other day. I don't know why this doesn't show up in more people's sideboards. It seems like a really good sideboard card to me. So maybe there's something I'm missing and I'm only going to find out by playing it, but it certainly looks good to me. Only one unlicensed Hearse to deal with reanimation decks, and that's because I also have the 4 Scrapgorgers in my main deck. And yeah, I think that's the interesting points about the sideboard. Let's go ahead and jam some matches. If people want to let me know whether they're liking the standard content or they'd like to see some draft videos, just go ahead and leave a comment. I'm planning on making, a bunch more videos about Phyrexia, and my plan was to start with standard, because I think standard is most interesting right when the set comes out, and then transition to draft eventually. But if you have a different preference, go ahead and let me know. I don't know what this card they just played is. Oh, I see. But it doesn't give any unblockability. I've been trying a green-white infect deck some as well. I didn't have blue in my deck like this opponent does. I guess some say Courage is good when you have Venerated Brought Priest in play. It seems kind of bad if you don't, though. And actually, I guess they got the one poison out of it, and they're going to get another poison, but I don't know about that one. I think Glissa is going to be really strong. Here. Up to 4 poison. Do I want to play a tapped land this turn or leave my Scrapgorger untapped? I think I want my Scrapgorger to be untapped. guess if they had like Loran's Escape, it would be pretty bad for me here, but I think I'm priced into blocking. Storm Chaser Drake. Okay. I guess they're playing the combo version of the Rot Priest. Why did I think that attacking was going to be good? It's not. In my head, I was going to be able to kill the Skrelv, but obviously that's not how the card works. So that's not good. They are at kind of a low life total, though. This feels like a game where if I'd been on the play, I would have won so easily. I've been on the draw, though. It's a bit of a challenge. I think I made a pretty clear mistake by attacking with Glissa last turn. Even though I am kind of close to just killing them with damage. I think they're going to sack the Drake. So if they Skrelv the Rot Priest and they have a way to target one of their things, I die. I guess I could have played a second black thing to get around that. I think I played this game pretty bad. So I can destroy the combat ward with my Glissa, and they're going to die. Invoke Despair if I do that. So what was this card called? Not Combat Ward, Combat Research. All right. I made a bit of a mess of that one, but I got there in the end. Against that deck. I think Vampire's Vengeance is going to be pretty good. It hits Skrelv and Rot Priest. I think I want Cut Down. Duress is usually good against that style of deck. Abrade. I think these Shigekis are going to be on the slow side. I don't need all these Tivers. Sheoldred's probably a little mediocre too. Maybe something like that. Just max interaction. I don't think I want Canker Bloom. I get that you can kill Skrelv with it, but I think I have enough stuff that kills Skrelv. Sheoldred's also, it's probably really hard for them to deal with. But I think I prefer Invoke Despair, and I don't think I want that many expensive cards in my deck. Somewhat awkward hand. I'm going to have tap land, but I do have like 2 1-mana spells, so I'm going to get to do something on turn 2 for sure. And then turn 3, I'll hopefully will have drawn a 3rd land. I'll be able to play Vampire's Vengeance if necessary, but worst case, I would be able to cast either, you know, one of these other spells. So far, we may be approaching worst case. I'm just going to Duress my opponent. Wow. It's a lot of pain for me. So they're playing the combo version. That's what this card is for. Whenever a player casts a spell that targets only a single creature other than Ivy, you may copy that spell. Copy targets Ivy. I don't think I care about that. Especially not now that I know they have 2 of that thing in their hand. I definitely don't care about it. Weep, opponent. I invoke despair upon you. Weep. I hope they're not done weeping yet. Somewhat painful mana base. It's a Jundoff. I think it would make a lot of sense to play Fable here if I wasn't getting to cast a spell in addition to using Shigeki, but I think that I'm getting one of their mana producers off the board while also potentially ramping myself. I think that's enough of a reason to do that. Now I just need to draw the untapped lands so I can make them weep. Despair, opponent. Oh, they're not despairing. Disappointing. Next turn they can weep. Come on, Sheoldred. Cut down, okay. Come on, Sheoldred. Phyrexian Dragon Engine, okay. This is a cool card, the Phyrexian Dragon Engine. I bet that if like the Armored Scrapgorger becomes a popular card, though, you just really aren't going to be able to play play this anymore because it's so much of the value is in getting it out of your graveyard. If I can bait them into killing the token. I guess they're not going to animate the Bankbuster and kill the token, so that's not going to work. So I'll just kill this ahead of time and not give them the option to kill the token. And I'll hold this land in my hand for discarding to Fable. Guess they're considering whether or not to use their blood token. I think if they have a land in their hand, they should just keep the land and just play land and plan to unearth the dragon engine. I think they definitely want to make their land drop next turn, so it doesn't make a ton of sense to loot the land away, if that's what's really going on. They also might just be AFK and they're only getting priority because they have a blood token in play and they've already mentally decided not to use it. That's probably what's happening, given that they paused for so long. So I drew 3 pain lands this game. I probably should have 1 less pain land and 1 more fast land in my deck. Like the Sulfurous Springs could just be a Blackcleave Cliffs. It's too bad there's no Blooming Marsh in Standard. Not that the mana needs to be any better in Standard, but just for this deck, I would like to have access to Blooming Marsh. I forgot this card exists. I always thought this was a pretty bad card. And I guess it's getting to do its dream thing of taking out a Fable of the Mirror Breaker before you get Chapter 2. Like, that's why people put it in their deck. I don't think that happens enough for it actually to be a good card. Maybe I was supposed to play this land and not take a point of pain. I was thinking I would see what I drew. Maybe I want to play the Copperline Gorge instead. This match is going to take a long time if this opponent keeps leaving their computer when it's their turn, when they have a blood in play. Or when it's my turn, rather. How are we doing on relative time? Can't read mine. They're at 25. I think I'm at like 28, so they've already spent double the amount of time I have. So I think I'm going to have enough time to Tyvar back Shigeki and then Shigeki and get some Despairs. being overrun by harvesters, though. Come on, land. So I'm going to have access 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This is my 10th land. Definitely having an even amount of lands is good. I think I play that. And a Shigeki for either two or three. I could do it for 2 and get a 2-mana interaction card. I go for the Thread or Infernal Grasp if I need to. Sure. That ain't gonna save you, though. Yeah, that's what I was envisioning when I put Shigeki in my deck. This matchup, so they... What's their fancy angle here? They have Unleash the Inferno, but we didn't see Invoke Despair. Didn't see Tyvar. They probably have at least one of those things in their deck, right? Does their mana base offer any clues? They have Rockfall Vale, which I don't have in my deck. I think you would tend not to play Rockfall Vale if you're going to play with Invoke Despair. Because, like, you aren't going to want to have a lot of red-green duels, and I think this is one of the worst. Of the red-green duels, this is the worst, because it doesn't actually help you cast your 2-drops on turn 2, unless it comes into play tapped on turn 1. Like, I think you're much better off having Copperline Gorge or Carplucian Forest in an Invoke Despair mana base. So I think I want Shigeki. I don't know that I really like any of these other cards particularly. I guess Abrade is good. It hits Bankbuster, and they had the Llanowar Speaker guy. Sheoldred's kind of bad. I think I probably want these Bankbusters too. Maybe cut some Edicts. Maybe like 1 Scrapgorger. I think I'm going to wind up trimming 1 or 2 Scrapgorgers in a lot of the matchups, because when you sideboard in Standard, generally both decks get drawn to being like more mid-range grindy kind of things. So generally, like, mana dorks become worse because there's just less pressure on you to have your hand play out at a rapid tempo. I'm going to want the option of playing Bloodtithe Harvester next turn. I don't think so. I think I'm just going to play the Scrapgorger. Canker Bloom, okay. Wonder why they think Cankerbloom is a good card to have boarded in. I mean, it hits Fable, but there's way better cards to have in your deck against Fable. Alright, they're a Tyvar deck. Maybe I was supposed to leave Sheoldred's Edict in my deck for situations like this. Is this a complete disaster? I'm not sure it's a complete disaster. I mean, it's bad, for sure. I think this is just the way that this matchup is going to work when you're on the draw some of the time, though. We're proliferating, okay. That's fine. I'm attacking the Tyvar with both of my harvesters anyway. So that proliferate didn't do anything. Probably gonna loot away this Shigeki. So back up Tyvar. So they still have Sheoldred in their deck. I haven't played a ton of these like grindier matchups. Wait, I think you're supposed to block and kill the other harvester opponent. I don't think you did that right. I was about to say, I haven't played a ton of these grindier standard matchups. So some of the things that I think people who have done a ton of it find pretty straightforward are still new to me. But it's also good to just have different perspectives. It's not necessarily the case that what everybody's been doing all along is correct. I'm gonna get my Shigeki. Guess I'll eat. It matters because of the Tyvar. They only have one Cankerbloom and they have two harvesters. I guess I'm eating the Cankerbloom. I also have one Llanowar Loam Speaker. Maybe I care about that more than Cankerbloom. The Harvester's obviously the best one. If there was only one Harvester, I would be taking that. But it's not an option for me. Hopefully they don't have a... If they have another Tyvar this turn, it's kind of bad for me. So they can use Tyvar to get back a Harvester and kill the Shigeki. I think I still would be in okay shape, though. Oh, Unleash the Inferno. Okay. Yeah, that was pretty good for them, I guess. I played the Proving Ground last turn because I knew I had the blood. I figured I could just cycle through a land. I was hoping to find a spell in my top two cards. I did not. I failed. Now we really need to find an Invoke Despair. Another Tyvar would be okay as well. There are worse cards to have drawn than Fable the Mirror Breaker. It's a little bit annoying that there's this Sheoldred in play. I'm going to take a fair amount of damage. Hopefully they don't have another Unleash the Inferno. Got, is that 3 blood or 4? It's 3. So they're gonna find some action for sure. The one thing I have going for me is I do have more mana than they do. So it isn't free for them to just pitch lands. So they have to have a removal spell in their hand if they're making this attack, right? I'm just going to take it. I don't want to triple block because their creature has Death Touch, so... Even though I could triple block and turn this thing into a 3/3, I would be... They just wouldn't play the removal spell. I would 3 for 1 myself, and then they would have a removal spell for the Fable Mirror Breaker. The second Unleash the Inferno is kind of brutal. I've gotten fairly brutalized by them. Yeah, I think I'm drawing a card. I don't want to crew and block with this just because if I do that, it'll have Summoning Sickness, so I wouldn't be able to activate it this turn, which that would be sad for me. This turn, if they run the attack again, I am going to triple block this time. Even though, like, if they run the attack, I'm not really expecting the triple block to work. I don't have... My other option is just chump, and I think triple blocking is better than chumping. Triple blocking last turn would have, I guess, worked out better because it turned out the removal spell they had was Unleash the Inferno. I live. It's not that pretty, but I do live. I have a Harvester in my graveyard, right? Yeah. And we can start scrap gorging. They've run through 2 Sheoldreds already, so I might be safe from being burned out from Sheoldred. They might not have any more. And I wanted to get the Scrapgorger in play just because it protects me against Tyvar. Getting back a Cankerbloom, I guess. This person is... They love Unleashing the Inferno. It is what they live for. Maybe I should have one in my sideboard just to try it out. I suspect I'm not going to be impressed by it, but maybe I would be. Invoke Despair. It wasn't Invoke Despair. Let's try again. Invoke Despair. That's pretty good. Even if it's no Invoke Despair. I think I want to play my land. They're going to unleash the Inferno again. They've got the fourth one in their hand. We all know it. The Inferno, it's being unleashed. Anything else that's worth getting here? Not really. Was that the fourth one of those? They really love that thing. So I can do this for if I do it for 1, 2, 3, use a removal spell on that, I think. Despair sounds good. Braid. Maybe just a Harvester. Nice. I battled through a massive Inferno. Alright, this is going to be a good game for Glissa Sunslayer. I'm calling it now. At least I'm hoping it's going to be a good one. Oh, did I play the wrong land? Because I drew the Boseiju. I think I may have in that. Had I drawn a Bloodtithe Harvester, I would have had to take a point of damage. But maybe there is some value in not playing the Boseiju and just having it as a land, like the option to use it as a Boseiju later on in the game if I draw enough other lands. So maybe that was right. Thing's been torn asunder. Sure. Here's hoping this thing lives. Doesn't seem that likely it's going to live. I don't think it is going to live. I've reevaluated my belief too. It's not going to live. What is this card? Black Sun's Twilight. Yes, I need to Edict the Sheoldred. I was hoping I was going to draw a 2-mana creature that I could just discard to the Brawler, to the Liliana, and then I could Edict them at the end of the turn, and then just Brawler back the creature. Alright, this is going to be a little rough. Did I show up with the wrong Planeswalker? Did I just get horribly unlucky and draw mostly lands this game? I think I drew mostly lands this game. And that'll do it. That Nissa really does not seem like a very good card to me. I'm just going to sideboard like that. Or, actually, let's have Bankbusters as well. This seems like a much better hand. Although my hand last game I thought was going to be pretty good, and it just kind of fell apart due to, I think, mostly to drawing lands. Am I getting Duressed? I am with, like the worst art Duress in the world. I haven't been boarding Duress in these kind of grindy Jund or green-black mirrors because I think it's just such a bad top deck. It's obviously pretty good if you get to have it in your opening hand. Keep doing that to me. I don't enjoy it. Should I just play the Glissa this turn? I think I am just going to play the Glissa. The idea being that if they don't have a removal spell, the Glissa is just going to start getting me value. If they do have a removal spell, that's kind of annoying, but they can't, like, if they can't just play a 4-mana creature there, or even a 2-mana creature, because they know about the Invoke Despair. If they have another removal spell, they might be tempted to play it to keep me off of Invoke Despair. Well, drowning the Icaring, my Scrapgorger, which is going to put a counter on the Bankbuster. Proliferate for value. Pretty nice. Those were not the cards I was looking for. So they should animate here probably, just to be able to block. Only going to get one of my Scrapgorgers in play this turn. What do I have in my yard? I have one Scrapgorger. Tyvar was really bad for me last game. It's not looking like it's going to be that stellar for me this game. The other thing you can do with Tyvar is just with the Scrapgorgers, you can speed up the gorging to get to the point where they're 3/3s faster. I could go for a Shigeki this game. Going down to 4 life to get a Nissa into play. They do have this thing to gain life. What does this, the other abilities on this do? Destroy an artifact or enchantment. Okay. Come on, Invoke Despair. cut down. Should I play this? I think I should not play it because if I draw a Bloodtithe Harvester, I can loot it away to a blood. That's the reason I was hesitating there. This Nissa does kind of, if it gets to sit and play, it definitely is quite powerful. I still die to Invoke Despair. Wasn't the strongest showing for the Scrapgorgers. Alright, Bloodtithe Harvester. I think I just need to crack it right away. Hope my top card is Invoke Despair. I guess maybe they don't die to Invoke Despair if I have it that turn. I think it's definitely good for me. Drown and Ichor. Yes, I'm going to draw a card with the Bankbuster. Well, they're forcing me to. They could have Duress in their hand, so it might be better to wait. But I do have 2 extra mana, so if I draw a 2-mana removal spell, it would be worth it to cast the 2-mana removal spell. I don't know if Invoke Despair actually saves me from this spot. It's still probably my best draw, but I don't think it's going to be enough. I guess I get to live another turn. This Nissa was impressive. I think maybe I should have it in my sideboard, just for this type of matchup. I think it's probably not a very good main deck card in this format. But in a matchup like this where you just want high impact 2-for-1s, it is a high impact 2-for-1. It's just a matter of, can you afford to pay the 4 life? And I think most of the time in this matchup you can. Phyrexian Arena, that is a terrible Magic card. They're going to win with it, although I don't think they needed it. Invoke Despair doesn't do anything because they even have the Arena to suck up a third of the Invoke Despair. Alright, defeated. So I want to make a couple changes to this deck based on my experience. I think I do want to trim 1 Pain land for 1 more fast land. And I think I want one of those Nisses in my sideboard. And I'll try and unleash the Inferno as well. Why not? What are we cutting for? Why is there this horrible graphical error? I wanted to cut... I think that the additional Shigeki probably is not worth it. Like, I think it's in those long games, you want to get to channel it once, but you don't really need to... You're never going to want to draw multiples of them, because it's really just... You're going to win off of channeling 2 spells back the first time, I think a lot of the time, and then, you know, with the Tyvar as well. So I think we can do without that. All right, now I need to find another card to cut that I can't see. Maybe the Pithing Needle doesn't do anything. I like having 1 Pithing Needle on my sideboard just in case I play against people who have Obnixiluses. The Hearse. I could live without the Hearse. It's kind of hard to tell what's in my sideboard given this graphical bug. I think maybe the second Bankbuster is the answer. All right. I think I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for watching. And like I said earlier, leave a comment if you want to see more standard videos or you want to start seeing some draft videos. Till then.